Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review. This movie is a thriller from the United States, English language, released in the year 2018, directed by Sarah Dagar Nixon, and this film is called A Vigilante. So A Vigilante is about this woman. She has a lot of problems for reasons I'm not going to go into, but she basically specialises in people who phone her up and she takes care of abuse. So whether it's a woman that's been abused by her husband or children being abused by the parents, she'll come over to that house and she'll take care of it and give these people a better life. And so this is what she specialises in, and as the movie goes along we start to realise why she's like this and why she's doing this. And so as the movie goes we get insight into her personal demons and whether or not she can not only save the people that she's been asked to, but also herself is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on A Vigilante. This is a very difficult film to sum up, is because there are phenomenal elements to this movie and there are other elements that kind of lessen that phenomenal aspect. And so I always felt as though this should have been a phenomenal film, but unfortunately it's just not, is because there are some elements that drag it down. And those elements I'll speak about a little bit later, but the phenomenal element of this movie is the performance from Olivia Wilde as the main character. This is a character that is shattered by her personal demons. It's a character that has been moulded by her personal demons, and she's doing these pretty horrific things for the greater good. And so it does beg the question, you have violence against violence, is that always the answer? And some people might say yes, some people might say no, and so there's a lot of conflicting sort of emotion within this character that makes her a very sort of anti-hero. Is that, alright, she's doing things that she wants to save someone from, but she's using violence against violence, and so it's a vicious circle, and no one's really coming out the winner. And so she's helping these people, and so for that, you can see her as a hero, but then as the movie starts to progress, you start to think, alright, well, there's a lot more to this. It's not so cut and dry, and that is reality. Reality isn't cut and dry. It's not black and white. And so I thought that was a really, really interesting aspect, and that aspect, the interest in that aspect was emphasised through the absolutely phenomenal performance. Olivia Wilde is a phenomenal actress, and she demonstrates exactly why. She demonstrates and gives examples of that phenomenal ability to act in this movie. I thought her character was absolutely fantastic. And so if you like films with great performances, then Olivia Wilde's performance in this movie was fantastic. I thought this is a very emotional film. It's a movie about domestic violence and the repercussions of domestic violence and how it's a domino effect. As I said, it's a movie also about violence against violence and the vicious circle that can consume someone in. And I thought the cinematography, it matched the sad quality to the movie. Although this woman was doing things that she believed would liberate these people that were ringing her, I always thought that no one really came out the winner, is that nothing was really ever feel good. It didn't glorify the violence in a way where you actually felt satisfied. It wasn't it wasn't therapeutic violence. It wasn't violence that satisfied you like a lot of horror films do. It was violence that was just really hard hitting, and it just intensified that sheer hopelessness and that sheer sense of depression that this film has. And so it's not a very happy movie, so be very careful of that. And I just thought that Olivia Wilde's performance just molds a character that is just so three-dimensional, is that there's a lot to like about her, but then her demons have just moulded her into this very scary person, but at the same time a person you could really sympathise for. And so, as I said, it's like an anti-hero in a world that is very realistic and very, very brutal. So it's a very brutal, dark experience, so be very careful of that. But unfortunately, the reason why I didn't like this film as much as I wanted to is that, yes, you have the phenomenal performance from Olivia Wilde and a very mature performance, but unfortunately the rest of the film just doesn't have that mature response with it. And so I always thought, okay, that the main character needed to be in a better film, is because the rest of the movie just doesn't really support her role. And what I mean by that is that it is very black and white. It's not black and white within her character, but it is a bit black and white in the situation that this film is depicting, in that domestic violence. And a lot of these domestic violence kind of movies, they really demonise males. And men are the perpetrators, is that they're evil and they're not to be trusted. And so every man in this film is a horrible individual. And that's not realistic, is that, yes, the majority of domestic violence cases are men against women, but it's not always the case. Sometimes it's women against men. And whether it's parents against children. And there was an aspect in this movie that I did appreciate that kind of went against the normality as far as these movies are concerned. But the majority of this movie is painting men in a very, very dark way. And And I thought, well, that's not really that mature sort of response. It's a response that you get in films such as I Spit on Your Grave, the rape revenge sort of movies, where men are just absolutely despicable people. And so this movie, it has that sort of attitude. It has that, all men are bad. And so I don't think that is an attitude that's very mature. And so Olivia Wilde's performance was very three-dimensional. It was contrasting differences in emotions, but unfortunately the rest of the film doesn't have that grey area. It doesn't have that ambiguity where you can kind of think to yourself, well, this is how the world is. It's because after her performance, you've got an absolutely phenomenal character within a very standardized, made-up world. It's a very movie-like world. It's a very theatrical world where basically men are terrible human beings, and that every man is evil and that every man is a contributor to violence, which is not the case. It's absolutely not the case. But unfortunately, because the majority of domestic violence cases are males against females, they are very much demonised and painted in a way that is painted in this film. And so that's something I didn't really like. And I also didn't like the second half of this movie. And so you get an inkling as to what this main character is about, but then it goes into her story, and there's something that happens that once again throws the movie into a theatrical piece. And so if you know, I have to be very careful not to give anything away, but the movie, it does go down a path where there's a lot of mystery, there's a lot of interest into why she is the way that she is, and we didn't really need the aspect of the second half, because the second half goes down more of a standard thriller, and I thought once again that didn't match it. So it's a very disjointed film as far as the tone is concerned. Yes, the cinematography is very bleak and depressing, it's very brutal, but then there are aspects that I just didn't think really fit in, and so it doesn't have a continuous sort of fluency as far as what kind of film this movie wanted to be. Did it want to be a cautionary tale? Did it want to be a thriller? Or did it want to be a social commentary? And so on all three of those aspects, I just don't think it nailed it, and I just thought that Olivia Wilde's performance stands out, but unfortunately the rest of the film just can't catch up. And so that's the reason why I was a little bit disappointed. It's still a very good film. It's still definitely worth it. See it for the performance of Olivia Wilde alone, and I'm sure that you'll be impressed. And so it's a great character within a film that's not bad, but just doesn't match that level. So overall, for A Vigilante, going to give this one 3 stars. Still go out there and see it. It's definitely worth it. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.